In the last video, we worked through problem number 1 and created the data. In this video, I'm going to work through problem number 2, where we have to calculate the total running cost. So we're going to be trying to sum up the values in this column and return them. All right, so we're supposed to do a method here called calculate total running cost. And you see here that we're supposed to call it from the exam application class, okay? Now you could do this in any order, but I kind of like to do it this way. So I know I'm going to call it here. And I also know that I want to print out the result. So I want to write the code so that it's going to print the result here, just so I can check my answer when I run the app. And let's see, what else? We know that this is stored as a big decimal type because in our database, if you looked in here, just like in the example exam that I gave you guys, we stored as decimal types, right? So, all right, let's go back here to the exam application. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, well, I want it to return a big decimal. This is the sum, and then I'm going to say I'm going to call calculate total running cost. And it doesn't need any parameters. Now, let's see. I'm calling it on the exam service, so I need to add that. Whoops, don't do that. Okay. All right, now let's see. Let's go ahead and print out where we're at it. It's out. Sum. All right, so this obviously doesn't exist, right? So I can do Alt-Enter and create method in the exam service, tab through here, and it even gives me a return null because we want the thing to compile. Okay. So we're going to fix that. Okay. So what do we need to do in this function? Well, let's see. We need to get a list of all the servers. We need to extract somehow the running cost. And then finally, we need to add them all up. In big decimal form. Okay. Now, there's a number of different ways that we could go about doing this. The requirement in the problem is that we use a stream. And so I'm going to walk through a couple of different ways in this video that you might have approached it. All right, so this first part's pretty simple. All we need to do here, if we want to get a list of all the servers, is we just say var servers. And remember, var is that thing that we can do in Java 11. Let's see, var servers equals, and then we want to use our server repository and find all. Okay. Now, the only issue with using var here is that you don't really know what data type this is. So you can come over here and hit Alt-Enter, and it will replace it with an explicit type. And in this particular case, that's instructive because it helps you understand what we might need to do. This returns an iterable. And that is not the same as a list. Okay. So if we're going to use it as an iterable, then we have to do a few things to get a stream from it. And so let me just walk through that approach. All right, so we're going to say, well, we can just say var sum, which we know is going to end up being a big decimal, right? So sum. Now we need to get this stream thing. Well, there's a class called stream support, which you may have looked up when you were studying the practice exam. And the syntax looks funny. We do stream support.stream, and then what we have to do here is we have to give it, it's looking for this thing called a splitterator, which is a kind of a goofy name, but anyway, we say servers.splitterator, and then we have to give it a second parameter that is false. Okay, and that actually gives us a stream to work with. And you can see here that we have all our normal stream operations. Okay, let's go ahead and let's assume that we've got this stream. Let's finish this out, and then let's go back and take a look at, well, what the heck is this business here? So just take it for what it's worth right now, that this is a stream at this point. So now we need to extract the one value that we're looking for, which is the running cost. The easiest way to do that is to use a map. So what we'll do is map, take the server, and then we want to do, say, server.get running cost. Okay. Now, I should mention here that there's a couple of other ways that you could go about looping through using this iterable, and you would have to do some pretty fancy typecasting to tell it that this is actually a server, because in general, it doesn't really know that. But the advantage of using this stream support.stream business with the split iterator is that it does actually know that this thing is a server, and we can just do our functions on it. Now, you might be tempted to use a collector, like collect, and then in here, we could use these collectors. Oops, don't do that. Dot, and then we've got summarizing double, we've got averaging double, all these kinds of things. What we don't have in here, we don't have anything in here that is going to sum up a big decimal type. Okay, so let's see, if we wanted to use the summarizing double approach, let's see, what would we have to do? Well, we'd have to say, let's see, well, we'd have to say big decimal and then double value, something like that, right? And that would work, but what we're actually returning now, if we go here and let's see what we actually get back, replace this. Normally we're getting this double summary statistics. Well, that's not what we wanted. The summarizing double thing's not doing what we want. So this is not a good idea. This is not going to work, right? What we want to do is do something that's going to give us a big decimal type back over here. And so maybe what we want to do here is tell it explicitly that we want a big decimal, and that way this thing will give us error messages if we're not giving us the right data type back. All right, so daylight savings time. Thank you very much. Go away. All right. All right, so what do I need to do here? Well, reduce is actually probably the best approach. And this actually is the approach that I showed in the practice exam. So let's do that. So we're going to say big decimal. So you need a value in this to start with, and we're going to use 0, because basically what you do is you give it a value, you say this is the starting value, and then we're going to add everything else to it. And in this case, we're going to do big decimal add. Okay, remember these things are called method references. Okay, where you have a double colon and a value. And then now all we have to do is return our sum. Okay, now let's see if that worked. Let's run it. Okay, and run. And right down here we have a number, and that is the correct number. So this is a perfectly valid approach. Okay. Now another approach, which is a little more similar to what we did in the practice exam, is to force this thing into an array list. So there's, again, multiple ways of doing that. You could start by with the iterator, and there's ways to take that iterator and essentially just loop through it and make an array list out of it. But the other thing that you can do is go into the exam service class here. I'm already in the exam service class. Well, I meant the server repository. And so the method that we're using is called full, find all. Not full, find all. Well, what you can do actually is write your own. And you do that by just saying, array list. And in this case, we want of type server. And we'll just say find all. Okay. And let's see. I'm going to replace that. Okay. And now array server find all. Now this is actually technically an override because what we're doing is overriding the existing find all method. And we're going to say here override. Okay. Now notice this thing turned around and changed things on us, right? So we don't want that. We're going to say, nope, we really meant what we said. Array list find all. Okay. Now import class. I think what happened is I may have hit that Alt-Enter thing a little bit too quickly and chose it to change the data type. So, all right, so now this thing is going to say return a find all in an array list, and that makes life potentially a little bit less confusing over here. So if we did this, if we take this part out, now we can actually say, we'll start here. Notice that this is the wrong type. So we're going to say array list. Server. The one constraint on the data type that you can set when you're overriding one of those built-in things is it has to support the iterable interface. So that means things like array list, regular lists, there's several other collection data types that you can use. All right, so now we got that. Now we can say servers dot stream, I think, and then we can continue. And just like before, now we can still do map and then reduce. So this makes it a little bit simpler because we don't have to use that stream support class in order to get our stream, right? We can just use the return type automatically.